The chat are in the waiting room is now in, it looks like, and I just started the recording. I'm going to drop the agenda in the chat for anybody who would like it. And just to reiterate, when we get to things later, if you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat or raise your hand using the raise your hand feature on Zoom.
Thank you, Danny. So if you have admitted all of our guests, we'll call the meeting to order. So welcome everyone to the April 2021 meeting of the Police Advisory Commission. I will say that we have had, as a result of the pandemic and the opportunity to meet virtually, far greater attendance at our meetings. I think that the interest has always been high, but as we know, getting out to an evening meeting can be difficult. And so we're hoping that this format can be maintained even once folks are back to a more regular life. I'm Rhonda Goldfein. I want to do a roll call of my colleagues. Danny, I think to make it easy, I'm going to read the names from the agenda and you'll give a heads up if you see our colleagues here. So Shauna Long.
I do not see Sean in yet.
Okay. Mujib Chaudhry. There's
Mujib is
Mujib.
here.
Hello, Mujib. Ben Geffen. There's Ben. I am here. George Mosey.
I see George.
I see our parliamentarian. Bilal Qayyum. I see Bilal. Michael Ramming.
No, Michael.
Okay. Michael Wehrman.
I see
Michael, yes. And Sarah Young.
I do not see Sarah.
Okay. We'll hope that they'll join in. Okay. Anthony, how about I'll pass to you, and if you'd be kind enough to introduce the staff and the PACS Council.
Will do. My name is Anthony Arachi. I'm the Executive Director of the Police Advisory Commission. Our council is not Jay Kivitz, it is BB Kivitz. And our staff here with us tonight is Angelica Hendricks, who's a policy analyst, Janine Zajac, also a policy analyst, Danny, who's the master of ceremonies and makes everything in our office work, Talia Grimmage, who is also a policy analyst, and we'll be hearing from her a little bit later. Not with us, but here with us in spirit is Anastasia McCarthy, who is also a policy analyst and is at home right now. I think with that, we can get rolling, Rhonda.
Thanks. So the first item of business, do we have a motion to approve the minutes from our last meeting? All right, Ben Geffen, a second. Bilal was seconding. All in favor from those eligible to vote? Okay. Any oppositions? Any abstentions? Okay. Motion carried. Thank you. My quick report is that I want to encourage us all to keep our eye on the ball. And by that, I mean the ordinance for the Civilian Police Oversight Commission. As we all know, last summer, Councilman Jones and the fine folks from Power spent a lot of time talking to the city about the need for civilian oversight, talking about what it would cost to provide appropriate oversight and what the city wanted. And we know from the November election that 500,000 Philadelphians want fully funded, appropriately funded civilian oversight. That wish and that ballot initiative has now translated into proposed regulation that's in City Council. We're hoping for hearings in May. Is that right, Anthony? May for hearings?
That's correct. Should be right around mid-May.
And so the things that we want to keep in mind is, or the things are, what is it Philadelphians want out of civilian oversight? You know, the staff is doing a fine job with a meager, if I may say, a meager budget. Staff is doing a fine job. But if there are the other elements that we and other jurisdictions believe are essential to effective oversight, well, that costs money. And if we want those things, then the money has to reflect the priorities for civilian oversight. And if the money doesn't reflect those priorities, then we can't have those things. As Anthony and I were discussing, you wouldn't invite a painter to your house, solicit a price to do the entire house and say, no, I'm only going to pay you half the money, but I still want you to paint the entire house. So let's make sure that we are tracking this in May. We will be announcing this, but that it's important that City Council hears what Philadelphians want. We heard once already, 500,000 voters say yes. Now we need to figure out and listen to the Philadelphians on how much more they want. How much detail is there? Can we have frontline investigations? Can we have staffing greater than what the PAC has now? That all takes money. There isn't the money, then we can't have that fully painted house. So it's your monthly reminder to keep our collective eye on the ball. Bilal, did you want to comment on that?
Yes, Friday I testified at the city's council's hearing on violence in the city of Philadelphia, and that question came up in the hearings about the oversight committee and what the dollar amount was, and I think I gave the right amount, but I had stated that the PAC had originally proposed at least $10 million to support the new oversight committee. So I was on record giving us a number. I don't know where that's going to go, but at least it was part of the discussion about to really have a very effective oversight committee. We need to fund it properly.
Thanks, Bilal. I think Anthony will take questions about that, or we can save them for the public comment. Actually, how about the deference of the chair? We will invite our guests. Actually, we'll follow along with the agenda. Then we'll have our guest with their presentation, and then we'll be open for public comment.
Sounds good. All right, so a brief update before we get started on our presentations. This month, we received 10 complaints that were forwarded to Internal Affairs. We've had 21 total this year, which is a lot less than is customary, which is hopefully a positive development, but I think it's probably more COVID related. Also, we had a recent officer involved shooting about a week and a half ago, maybe close to 2 weeks ago, that where someone was killed. We've been monitoring that investigation into that incident, and the PAC reviewed the body camera footage this week. We will continue to do so until the investigation is completed, but that's where that is right now. It's still ongoing and it's not closed yet. That's all we have. We have now 2 presentations coming up, and I'm gonna hand it off to Danny to get the introductions going and get everybody started.
Actually, I'll let Talia do the introductions.
Oh, there we go.
Let Talia.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our April community meeting. Our first presentation is going to be from Mr. Tyrone Melvin from Women Organized Against Rape, also known as WOAR. Mr. Melvin, I turn it over to you.
Mr. Melvin, I'm asking to unmute you. Let me.
Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you now, and I'll pull up your presentation right now.
Okay, thank you.
1 second. All right. Can everyone see the presentation?
Yes.
Great.
Okay, you can go to, let me just slide this out. You can go to the next slide, actually. Okay, so for those who don't know, WOAR used to be called Women Organized Against Rape. We went through a name change almost 2 years ago because we realized that Women Organized Against Rape didn't sound inclusive. And we forget when we're talking about rape or sexual violence, we almost forget that we have a separate audience. We have males who also experience sexual violence, or those who identify as non-binary, and they didn't feel welcome. So we changed it from Women Organized Against Rape to Philadelphia Center Against Sexual Violence. WOAR is one of the first rape organizations to be founded in Philadelphia. And matter of fact, it's the only rape crisis center in Philadelphia, and it was founded in 1971 and incorporated in 1973. You can go to the. Our mission is sexual violence thrives in a society rooted in systemic oppression. WAR's mission is to end sexual violence in Philadelphia, and to accomplish this mission, we fight all forms of oppression, including racism and gender-based violence. Some of our services includes a 24-hour crisis hotline. You can see the number at the top of the page. We have individual counseling, Spanish speaking, LGBTQ friendly, group counseling, legal accompaniment, medical accompaniment, human trafficking, prevention, education, and outreach. Next page. And again, we have a 24-hour crisis hotline, 7 days a week, all year round, and you can call, text, and we have chat options. Crisis counseling, resource referrals, and anonymous options. All of our advocates are trained to handle any call that comes in, so that you know that. Again, store the number and save it just in case. So what some may or may not know is that all of our services are free. We see men, women, and non-binary victim survivors. Unfortunately, we see victims, or should we say children, as young as 2 years old to teens upward till the elderly. Ages 14 and up will not need parental consent. Again, English and Spanish speaking therapists, interpretation services are available in other languages, LGBTQ friendly, and human trafficking competent. We have our core group walk-ins, which usually is every Monday from 10 to 12. I think it's from 10 to 12:30. Now, I don't know how that's working now. It may be like everything else on Zoom now, because nobody's in the office. We have our LGBTQ group. We have a women's group. We now have up and running our men's group that we're still working on, because unfortunately, for those who know male survivors, men don't see themselves as victims, which is part of a large problem in most communities. But we want them to know that we do have a support group, and we're out there advocating on their behalf. We also have a teen group, Stepping Stones, for ages 6 to 12, and building block groups for ages 3 years old and 6. This is Thor, our certified service dog. Need I say more? WAR does not share any information about the clients or their progress in session without written consent. Let me just move this over. Their progress in sessions without written consent from the client. Sexual assault counselors hold privileged identities where their case notes can be subpoenaed by the court. See that? Legal accompaniment. WAR's court advocates are present at all preliminary hearings for sexual assault cases for both children, adults, trials, and sentencing upon request. So I'll just give you a little bit more history on that. The WAR advocates, I'll just give you the role of that court advocate. The role of a court advocate provides accompaniment to victims, survivors of sexual assault cases in court for their preliminary hearings daily. The WAR court advocate also provides accompaniment to victim survivors of sexual assault cases in court for their trials and sentencings upon request. The role of the WAR court advocate is not to represent victims, survivors legally in any case. The role of the WAR court advocate is to assist the victim, survivor, and support family members in navigating the criminal justice systems, to provide emotional support, crisis counseling, resource information, and more. Next. the medical company, as suggested. This is the PSARC Philadelphia sexual. My mind just went blank, but this is for the rate prices. So WAR will provide, upon request, if you want someone to be there to support you during the rape accompaniment setup or exam, WAR will send someone out to support you from the beginning of the exam until the end of the exam. If you do not have a vehicle, you can request, or you can call WAR, and WAR will provide you, I think it's through Lyft, a ride there, just to, or from. It's not both though. We won't pay for both, but we will provide you service to there. Prevention education, just as that, stopping sexual violence before it happens. So some of the other stuff that we offer is professional development, parent training, healthy relationships training for youth, Title IX trainings for colleges and universities, psychoeducation group, workshops for children and youth. And I also want to add to schools, we have trainings for pre-K to 12th grade, technical institutes, community-based agencies as well as faith-based agencies as well. And we have what we call a LOTUS program, which is developing a cultural competency to support the LGBT community. Community outreach is just like it sounds, engaging and educating the community about all of our services for sexual violence survivors and their loved ones. We do this through tabling, street outreach, partnerships, and ongoing relationship buildings with various communities and or other organizations. And that is pretty much it. If you have any questions, now I wanted to kind of cut this presentation down because most of us have a long day. This is usually over an hour, but I want to kind of make it safe. But I left it open for if anybody had any questions, I can answer that for you. If not, we can move forward.
Talia, I think one
Yes.
of the
Thank you, Tyrone. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you. Thank you, Talia.
Presentation. You know, there are a lot of resources available, you know, for Philly residents, and a lot of people don't know about them. So spaces like this, you know, it really gives people an opportunity to learn more about organizations like yours who do such a great job of, you know, supporting the residents of Philly. And listen, like many others, I was familiar with WAR, but you taught me a few things this evening that, you know, I didn't know. I didn't know the name had changed to the Philadelphia Center Against Sexual Violence. You know, I didn't know that there was a rideshare program that you can, you know, help people get to and from their exams. And I didn't know that, you know, you could accompany people to their court appearances. So that's something that I'm sure everyone was interested to learn this evening. So if anyone has any questions for Mr. Melvin, they can put them in the chat. And I'm going to get the ball rolling with two questions that were previously submitted. So the first question is, there has been a lot of discussion about the term victim versus survivor. Is one more preferable to the other?
No. I think that, you know, so I think survivor is just a safe word because some people don't like to feel victim because we have a tendency to re-victimize victims. So I think survivors is just a safe word. I don't see much of a difference in the wording other than the word is survivor. I just think sounds a little bit more safe and feels less harmful to the survivor. I was going to say victim, but we don't want them to feel, because they're already feeling a kind of way, but we want to give them space to feel like they are survivors of something they're trying to survive in real time, because that's the goal.
Okay. Thank you. The next question is, though not often discussed, can you talk a little more about male victims of sexual assault and what typically helps men who disclose or report assault or abuse come forward?
So again, oftentimes men are less likely to see themselves as the victims. And part of that is we have these societal narratives and these hierarchy, these patriarchal narratives that control how men see themselves or identify themselves. So we don't have a lot of safe spaces for men to come forward and say, hey, this happened to me, because when they do, unfortunately, we have roles or we have these false narratives that have been put in place that are very harmful to men. And so we don't always know how to support men, but I always, being a former survivor myself, I give men